All right, so in today's video, I want to show you guys how I go about training chest. I got some before pictures like 2-ish years ago, coming up on 3. This is going into my senior year of high school. I was pretty fucking fat in these, but I was pretty chest dominant. This was like a month or two ago, and then these are from this week. And one thing you see a lot nowadays is people hating on the bench press and saying that it sucks as a chest builder. And the thing with really any exercise, squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, pull up, whatever, is they can all suck as exercises if you turn them into ego lifts. And also, like, you can bias different muscle groups with each of them. That's just kind of how a compound lift works. The tip with bench is to use a very small arch, and then you can play around with the grip. I like the wider grip for my chest. You can also do it hook lying, and then pause. Do not bounce out of the bottom. I'll get onto that later, but get a good pause. Whether that's, I would do a t-shirt pause or a spoto where you're just barely grazing the chest hairs. You know what I mean? But you're not sinking it on your chest. You're not bouncing it. You're really just using that as like a point to know like how far you've gone down, right? When it grazes the chest, you push back up with a slight pause. It doesn't need to be super long, just long enough that you're under control. You know what I mean? And bring it down under control, the usual stuff. One thing about the bench is that slight arch to no arch in a hook lying style, I think is totally the best way to do it. A bigger arch, I'm just not into anymore. But that's mostly all I got to say for bench. I mean, I could make a really long video about it, but that'll get you most of the way there. The next one is going to be dips. So when it comes to dips, I recommend kind of keeping that stack. I forgot his name, but keep the ribs down and kind of your belly button, pull them together a little bit. And one that'll get rid of the sternum pain, at least it did for me. Look up a back pod if you are struggling with that. That really helped me. A slight pause on the bottom again, I really think helps. And then the other thing is the dips. Dips really hit your tendons a lot, I notice. Which is good and bad. But if you're bouncing off the tendons all the time, they'll probably get messed up and not be too happy unless you're really smart about and build up to it. But if you're trying to build your muscles, I do think pausing the bottom is probably the best for chest. I also use a reverse grip on dips. I just got that from Alex Leonidas, and I think it hits the upper chest a lot more, and it also lets you stretch forward, kind of fall forward a little bit more, which kind of turns it almost into this flying type of movement. It's kind of a mix between dips and then kind of like an incline, normal fly kind of thing. There's a little bit more shoulder flexion there. Super solid, and yeah, it just cooks my chest. Obviously triceps and shoulders too, but I get a crazy chest pump when I do dips. So I would recommend putting the feet forward, bringing the ribs down, flexing the abs really hard, and then pausing in the bottom. Pause at the top too, but pausing in the bottom I think is more important. And that should probably get your dips to hit the chest a little bit more. And then alongside that, I like a little bit higher reps on dips. I like 8 to 12 kind of thing. On the bench, I like a little bit lower reps. But I also like higher reps on bench. I mean, it's not like you can never do one or the other. I just like a little bit higher reps on dips and a little bit lower reps on bench. Because I feel like my bench fatigues faster than my dips do. So I think I can get more out of like 4 to 6 reps on bench than out of 8 to 12, at least right now. In the future, I'll probably go back to doing some 20s and stuff here and there, but not right now because it's moving pretty nicely. And then for flies, I've got 2 ways I do flies. I do pec deck, and then I do this cable fly. With the cable fly, I like to also keep my ribs down a lot, which differs from the pec deck. On the pec deck, I like to kind of flare a little bit in the bottom and then kind of hug or like bring the ribs down as I go through. I feel like it gives me a better contraction. On these, I almost treat this like a dip in a certain sense, like a dip and a fly mixed together. Obviously, it's more of a fly, but I am pushing down most of the time. But with the way you are on the bottom, you also get a lot of upper chest in this as well. But I like to pause in the bottom and the top with these just to get the contraction and the squeeze. I find that to feel pretty nice. And I think with the slight instability of the cables, squeezing at the top is actually really hard. So I think that's kind of a unique advantage to those that you don't get in like bench because it's pretty stable at the top. The cables are just a little different. And as you can see here, I'm flaring a little bit at the bottom, and then I am trying to I'm trying to like bring my ribs down as I go through it, which is pretty challenging. And then lastly, right here, I've got how I used to bench, and I don't hate this at all. I actually think this is pretty like lower pec biased. Like if I wanted to make this a really good hypertrophy movement, I would just control it on the bottom a little bit more. But I built a lot of muscle benching like this, so I don't think there's anything that's inherently wrong with it, especially if you're doing other controlled movements. I think that nowadays my dips kind of replace that heavy bench stimulus when it comes to overload and stuff like that on the tendons and CNS and whatnot. But I just don't find this style of bench to be that entertaining anymore to me, and I also don't feel like I get the gains that I used to. But if you're benching like that and you're making gains, and again you have like other things you're doing that are pretty controlled, whether that's dips or flies or dumbbell press or something, then you'll probably be fine. But I'm learning what my body needs and whatnot as I progress as a natural bodybuilder, and you will too. You might not like low arch bench, like maybe it hurts your shoulders, but maybe you can do something else that's similar. You know what I mean? Like everyone's a little bit different. I really like bench dips and flies. I've been noticing that's blowing everything up. And then I think that the overhead press I've been doing with the elbows more forward, I think that hits my upper chest a lot. But this video is more about like overall chest with a strong bias towards lower chest. Because if you do what I'm doing, the upper chest will grow. It just won't be the most prioritized, which for most people is probably okay. I think upper chest is overrated for most lifters, just because like usually people that worry about upper chest a ton have like no chest. If your chest is more developed, then it's like, all right, you can start worrying about upper chest a lot more. But I would say for the average lifter who is like maybe not even at 3 plates, I would say that you got bigger fish to fry than only worrying about your upper chest. I think that's kind of like a plague that you've been seeing in fitness. Alongside that, maybe stuff like the VMO or whatever, just like one head of the muscle that people are like, oh, or like the long head of the triceps where it's like, oh, I only want to hit the long head. But it's like, bro, you have no triceps. So as per usual, kind of follow the rules and get strong at them. And then you can kind of figure out how to make them bend to your will and get you the gains that you want and you need. So that's all I got to say in this video. Hope your guys' chest is going to grow from this. And yeah.